The crystalline spires of Research Outpost Helios pierced the violet sky of La Maria Prime, their translucent surfaces refracting the light of 3 setting suns. Within the quietest laboratory, Solara worked alone, her sensitive fingers gliding over the bioluminescent specimens she'd collected. Though blind since birth, she had become one of the most accomplished botanical researchers among the Lemurians, a species whose bodies naturally channeled and processed light. For Solara, darkness was both a curse and a gift. While her people saw her lack of light perception as a defect, it had forced her to develop other ways of understanding their world. Her enhanced tactile sensitivity allowed her to detect subtle energy patterns in plants that others overlooked. Still, the isolation wore on her. Most Lemurians avoided her, uncomfortable with her dark, unreflective eyes and her different way of experiencing their light-saturated world. The lab's ambient hum shifted slightly, someone was approaching. Solara's fingers paused over her specimens, her crystalline antennae detecting unfamiliar vibrations. The footsteps were too heavy for a Lemurian. "Hello?" A deep voice broke the silence. "Sorry to intrude. I'm Dr. Nathan Reed from the Earth Science Division. I was told I might find a botanical expert here." Solara turned toward the voice, her antennae registering the unique energy signature of a human, warmer, denser, and more chaotic than her people's crystalline forms. "I am Solara, lead researcher in bioluminescent flora. What brings a human to my laboratory?" "I'm studying the potential medical applications of your world's light-producing organisms," Nathan explained, his tone carrying genuine enthusiasm. "Your papers on energy transfer in crystal-based life forms are fascinating. Though I admit, some of the concepts are beyond my understanding." A small smile touched Solara's lips. It was refreshing to be approached for her work rather than avoided for her difference. "Perhaps we can help each other, Dr. Reed. Your people's perspective on biological systems is unique. Please, call me Nathan." His footsteps brought him closer, and Solara could sense him examining her specimens. "These are remarkable. The energy patterns are unlike anything we've seen. How do you study them without direct visual observation?" "I see through touch," Solara explained, demonstrating by running her fingers over a glowing frond. "Every living thing has its own energy signature. I've learned to read them like you read light." "That's incredible," Nathan said, and Solara detected no pity in his voice, only genuine admiration. "Would you be willing to collaborate? Your understanding of energy patterns combined with our neural interface technology could revolutionize how we study these organisms." Solara hesitated. Collaborating with humans was controversial among her people, who prided themselves on their technological superiority. Yet something about Nathan's earnest approach intrigued her. "What exactly are you proposing?" "We've developed sensors that can translate various energy signatures into neural signals," Nathan explained. "With your expertise, we might be able to adapt them to read bioluminescent patterns in new ways. It could help both our peoples better understand these life forms." As Nathan spoke, Solara's mind raced with possibilities. If successful, such technology could bridge the gap between different ways of perceiving the world. It might even help others understand her perspective. "An interesting proposal," she said carefully. "Though my people may not approve. They prefer traditional methods." "Sometimes progress requires looking at things differently," Nathan replied. "From what I've read of your work, you already excel at that." Solara found herself warming to his words. Most dismissed her alternative methods as inferior, but this human seemed to see value in her unique approach. "Very well, Dr. Reed. I will consider your proposal. But first, tell me more about these neural interfaces of yours." As Nathan enthusiastically launched into an explanation of human biotechnology, Solara felt something she hadn't experienced in years: hope. Perhaps this unexpected meeting was the beginning of something revolutionary, not just for science, but for understanding itself. Little did either of them know that their collaboration would soon challenge the foundations of both their societies, and forge a connection that transcended their biological differences. The following weeks transformed Laboratory Helios into a fusion of human and Lemurian technology. Nathan's neural interface equipment hummed alongside Solara's crystalline instruments, creating an otherworldly symphony of science. Their collaboration, though productive, didn't go unnoticed by the Lemurian Science Council. "Your work with the human concerns us," Council member Valara announced during her unexpected inspection. Her crystalline form cast prismatic patterns across the laboratory walls. "Our methods have served us for millennia. Why risk contamination with inferior technology?" Solara's antennae detected Nathan tensing beside her, but his voice remained diplomatic. "With respect, Council member, our technology isn't inferior, just different. Like Solara's unique way of studying specimens, sometimes a new perspective reveals hidden truths." Valara's light patterns flickered with disapproval. "Ah yes, your unconventional methods, Solara. Perhaps that explains your willingness to embrace these primitive approaches." After Valara departed, Nathan released a long breath. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to make things more difficult for you." "You didn't," Solara assured him, her fingers dancing over their latest experiment, a neural sensor array modified to detect and interpret bioluminescent energy patterns. "The Council has always questioned my methods. But look at what we've achieved in mere weeks." The sensor array was their first breakthrough. By combining human neural interface technology with Lemurian crystal-based processors, they'd created a device that could translate bioluminescent energy patterns into data both species could understand. It was a small step, but a significant one. "Speaking of achievements," Nathan said, his voice brightening, "I think I've solved the power transfer issue. Watch, feel this." He adjusted something on the array, and Solara's antennae detected a shift in the energy field. The specimen they were studying, a rare crystal flower, responded with a surge of bioluminescence. "Extraordinary," Solara breathed, her fingers detecting complex energy patterns she'd never encountered before. "The flower's responding to the interface. It's like it's trying to communicate." "That's not all," Nathan said excitedly. "The neural feedback is stable. We could potentially use this to help others understand how you perceive the world." Solara's hands stilled. "What do you mean?" "Think about it, this interface doesn't just measure energy patterns, it translates them. With some modifications, we could create a system that lets others experience your way of sensing things. It could bridge the gap between different forms of perception." The possibility was both thrilling and terrifying. "You think people would want to experience the world as I do? Most see my condition as a flaw to be pitted." Nathan's hand found hers, warm against her crystalline skin. "I don't pity you, Solara. Your perception isn't a flaw, it's a gift. You notice things others miss, understand patterns they can't see. Maybe it's time they understood that." Their moment of connection was interrupted by an alert from the lab's communication system. Director Theron, head of the research division, requested their presence immediately. As they made their way through the crystalline corridors, Solara sensed Nathan's concern. "The director isn't like Valara," she assured him. "He's more open to innovation." Indeed, when they entered Theron's office, his energy signature was curious rather than hostile. "Your progress reports are intriguing," he said, gesturing for them to sit. "Particularly your observations about cross-species perception." "Thank you, Director," Solara replied carefully. "We believe our research has implications beyond just studying bioluminescent life forms." "Yes, I see that." Theron's tone grew serious. "Which is why I've decided to expand your project. The medical division is particularly interested in your neural interface technology." Nathan leaned forward. "You mean?" "We have others like Solara," Theron explained. Not many, our genetic engineering usually prevents such variations. But those who exist might benefit from your work. If you're willing to explore that possibility. Solara felt Nathan's excitement radiating beside her. This was more than they'd hoped for, official support to develop their technology further. But it also meant greater scrutiny, higher stakes. There's more, Theron continued. The Earth Science Division has expressed interest in establishing a permanent research exchange. They believe your collaboration could serve as a model for future joint ventures. As they left Theron's office, Solara's mind whirled with possibilities. Their small experiment had opened doors neither of them had anticipated. But with those opportunities came new challenges. Are you ready for this? Nathan asked softly. It's going to mean a lot of attention, not all of it welcome. Solara thought of all the others like her, living in shadows on a world of light. Yes, she said firmly. It's time for both our peoples to see things differently. Above them, the three suns of Lamaria Prime painted the crystalline spires in shifting colors, a reminder that perspective was everything in their quest to bridge the gap between worlds and hearts. The medical division's testing chamber hummed with anticipation. Rows of crystalline monitors displayed cascading data as Solara and Nathan made final adjustments to their enhanced neural interface. Their first volunteer, a young Lemurian named Riven, waited nervously on the examination platform. Like Solara, I was born without light perception, Riven explained, his antennae twitching. My parents tried every traditional treatment, but nothing worked. They say your device might help me experience the world differently? That's our hope, Nathan replied, carefully attaching the neural sensors. Though it won't give you standard light perception, it should help you experience energy patterns the way Solara does. Solara moved closer, her fingers finding Riven's shoulder. Remember, this isn't about fixing anything. You're not broken. We're just offering a different way of understanding our world. As they initiated the interface, Solara's antennae detected Riven's energy signature spike with excitement. The chamber's monitors erupted with activity, tracking the neural connections forming between the interface and Riven's crystalline nervous system. I can feel it, Riven whispered, his voice trembling. The energy patterns, they're like music, but in my mind. Is this how you experience things, Solara? Everyone's perception is unique, she replied softly, but yes, that's similar to how I sense the world. The test's success drew immediate attention. Within days, their laboratory was flooded with requests from other light-blind Lemurians eager to try the interface. But not everyone celebrated their breakthrough. You're encouraging deviation from our natural evolution, Council member Villara argued during an emergency session. These individuals should focus on traditional adaptation methods, not rely on human technology to simulate abilities they weren't meant to have. With respect, Nathan countered, standing firm before the council, your own history shows that evolution isn't about limitation, it's about adaptation. This technology doesn't replace Lemurian biology, it works with it, creating new possibilities for connection and understanding. While the council deliberated, Solara and Nathan continued their work. Late one evening, as they reviewed data from their latest trials, Nathan made an unexpected suggestion. What if we reverse the interface, he asked, his voice carrying that tone of excitement Solara had come to cherish. Instead of just helping light-blind Lemurians experience energy patterns, what if we could help sighted individuals experience the world as you do? Solara's antennae quivered with surprise. You want to share my perspective with those who already have light perception? Why? Because understanding goes both ways, Nathan said, moving closer. Maybe if others could experience your way of sensing the world, they'd stop seeing it as a limitation and recognize it as the gift it is. The warmth in his voice made Solara's crystalline form resonate in a way she'd never experienced before. Their hands found each other's, and in that moment, something shifted between them, a connection deeper than their scientific collaboration. But their intimate moment was interrupted by an urgent alert. Director Theron's energy signature appeared at their laboratory entrance, accompanied by several others Solara didn't recognize. Representatives from Earth's Scientific Council have arrived, Theron announced, his tone grave. They're concerned about the broader implications of your technology. And they're not alone. The Lemurian High Council is calling for a formal review of your entire project. What? Nathan's hand tightened around Solara's. Why now? Our results have been remarkable. That's precisely why, one of the Earth representatives stated. This technology goes beyond medical application. The ability to share and translate different forms of perception could revolutionize interspecies communication. Some worry it could also be used for less benevolent purposes. Solara felt Nathan's frustration radiating beside her. Their work had always been about breaking down barriers, not creating new ones to fight against. But perhaps this challenge was inevitable. True change never came easily. We're not stopping, she declared, surprising herself with her firmness. Our work is too important. Not just for those who can't perceive light, but for everyone who's ever felt disconnected because they experienced the world differently. No one's asking you to stop, Theron said carefully. But you'll need to prove that the benefits outweigh the potential risks. Both councils are demanding a formal demonstration, one that will test not just the technology, but its impact on both our species. As their visitors departed, Nathan and Solara remained in their suddenly quiet laboratory, their joined hands a small act of defiance against the forces threatening to unravel their work. Whatever happens, Nathan whispered, we face it together. Your perception helped me see the world in a new way, Solara. Now we just have to help others see it too. Above them, through the crystalline dome of their laboratory, the three sons of Lamaria Prime began their nightly dance, casting shadows that meant nothing to Solara, but everything to the connection she and Nathan had forged, a bridge between different ways of being that promised to change both their worlds forever. The Grand Assembly Hall of Lamaria Prime sparkled like a frozen aurora, its crystalline walls amplifying the light of all three suns. Today, those same walls would witness an unprecedented joint session of the Earth Science Council and the Lemurian High Council, a trial that would determine the fate of Solara and Nathan's research. The interface must be tested on a wider scale, announced Earth Counselor Bennett, her hologram flickering slightly in the crystalline atmosphere. We need to understand its full implications before approving further development. Agreed, echoed High Elder Lysander, his luminescent form pulsing with authority. But who would volunteer for such a demonstration? The risks of linking different perceptual systems are unknown. I volunteer, Nathan's voice rang out clearly. Solara's antennae detected his determination, tinged with nervousness. I'll experience Solara's way of sensing the world. A murmur rippled through the assembled councils. No human had ever attempted to integrate with Lemurian sensory patterns before. The potential for neural damage was significant. I also volunteer, came another voice. Solara recognized Council Member Vilara's energy signature, though her tone had lost some of its previous hostility. I will experience the light-blind perspective. If this technology is truly safe and valuable, let us prove it conclusively. The demonstration was scheduled for the following day. That evening, in their laboratory, Solara and Nathan made final adjustments to the neural interface while dealing with their own anxieties. Your neural patterns are different from ours, Solara reminded him, her fingers moving swiftly over the calibration controls. The sensation will be intense. Are you certain about this? Nathan caught her hand, stilling her nervous movements. I've never been more certain of anything. You've shown me that there are countless ways to see beauty in this universe. Now let me help others understand that too. The warmth of his touch resonated through her crystalline form, creating tiny harmonics that made her antennae quiver. Their growing closeness was becoming harder to ignore, even as the stakes of their work reached critical levels. Nathan, she began hesitantly, if something goes wrong tomorrow. It won't, he interrupted softly, moving closer. But if you're worried about my neural patterns, maybe we should do a final test. Just to be sure. Solara felt his other hand gently touch her face, his fingers tracing the crystalline contours with a tenderness that made her breath catch. Without the interface, he couldn't sense the cascade of energy patterns his touch created within her, but somehow he understood their connection just the same. Your world has always been beautiful to me, he whispered, even before I could see it through your perception. The moment was interrupted by the lab's preparation alert. The demonstration would begin in 12 hours, and there were still final calibrations to complete. Reality crashed back in with all its weight and worry. The next morning, the demonstration chamber was packed with observers from both councils. Nathan and Villara were positioned on opposite sides of the room, each connected to a modified version of the neural interface. Solara stood at the control center, her fingers hovering over the crystalline console. "Begin primary neural synchronization," she announced, initiating the sequence. The chamber hummed with energy as the interface activated, creating a bridge between radically different ways of experiencing reality. Nathan gasped as Solara's world opened up to him, a symphony of energy patterns, vibrations, and resonances that painted a picture more complex than simple vision. Across the room, Villara went completely still as her light perception was temporarily suppressed, replaced by the heightened awareness of energy fields that Solara navigated daily. "The neural patterns are stable," reported the medical monitor. "Both subjects are successfully processing the altered sensory input." "Extraordinary," Villara breathed, her antennae waving as she explored this new way of perceiving. "The energy fields, they're like music made visible. How did we never understand this before?" Nathan's voice joined hers, filled with wonder. "It's beautiful. Solara, is this really how you experience everything? The patterns, the harmonies, it's like seeing the underlying structure of reality itself." The chamber erupted with excited murmurs as both councils witnessed the successful exchange of perceptual experiences. But suddenly, Nathan's neural readings began to spike. "His human nervous system is struggling to process the input," the medical monitor warned. "We need to terminate the connection." "No," Nathan gritted out, his hands clenched. "Just a few more moments. They need to understand." Solara's fingers flew over the controls, making minute adjustments to stabilize the interface. She could sense Nathan's determination to complete the demonstration, to prove that understanding across differences was possible, no matter the personal cost. In that moment, watching Nathan willingly push his limits to help others understand her world, Solara realized that their connection had grown far beyond mere scientific collaboration. They had built something revolutionary, not just in their technology, but in their hearts. The question was, would it be enough to convince both their worlds that different ways of seeing could lead to greater understanding for all? The aftermath of the demonstration sent shockwaves through both Earth and Lemurian societies. As Nathan recovered in the medical bay, his neural readings slowly stabilizing, the joint council chambers buzzed with intense debate. Solara hadn't left his side for 3 days, her antennae constantly monitoring his energy patterns. "You took an unnecessary risk," she chided softly, her fingers intertwined with his. "The interface wasn't meant to handle such prolonged exposure." Nathan smiled weakly, his eyes finding hers despite her unseeing gaze. "It was necessary. They needed to experience it fully to understand. Besides, it was worth it." He was right. The demonstration had accomplished more than years of diplomatic discussions. Even Council member Villara, once their strongest critic, had become an advocate for their work after experiencing Solara's way of perceiving reality. "We've been short-sighted," Villara announced during the final council session. "Our pursuit of perfect light perception made us blind to other ways of understanding our world. This technology doesn't just help those without light perception, it expands all our horizons." The Earth Science Council was equally moved. "The potential applications are extraordinary," Counselor Bennett declared. "Not just for medical purposes, but for expanding human consciousness and fostering genuine understanding between different species. 1 month later, the Helios Research Center was officially inaugurated, a joint venture between Earth and Lamaria Prime dedicated to the study and development of perceptual interface technology. Solara and Nathan stood together at the opening ceremony, their success marked by the crowds of both humans and Lamarians eager to experience different ways of seeing the universe. "Did you ever imagine this?" Nathan asked as they escaped the celebrations to their favorite spot in the bioluminescent gardens. "When we first met, did you think we'd change both our worlds?" Solara's antennae detected his enhanced energy signature. He now wore a permanent, modified version of their interface, allowing him to partially share her way of perceiving reality. It was like having a constant bridge between their worlds. "I never imagined any of this," she admitted, turning toward him. "My people saw my blindness as a flaw, something to be fixed or hidden away. You saw it as another way of understanding reality. You helped me see that different isn't lesser, it's just different." Nathan drew her closer, and Solara felt the familiar harmonic resonance their proximity created in her crystalline form. "You taught me that too. Your world showed me that there are infinite ways to experience beauty. Speaking of which..." He guided her hand to a small crystal he wore around his neck. As her fingers touched it, she gasped. Within the crystal, she sensed intricate energy patterns, a perfect harmony of human and Lamarian frequencies. "It's a promise," Nathan explained softly. "On Earth, we exchange rings. But I thought this might mean more to you. It's attuned to both our energy signatures. A symbol of two different ways of seeing coming together as one." "Nathan," Solara whispered, her antennae quivering with emotion. "Are you asking?" "Yes," he said simply. "Our work proved that differences can become strengths when we're willing to understand each other. You and I proved that love can bridge any gap, cross any distance. Marry me, Solara. Let's continue exploring the universe together, through your perception and mine." Above them, the 3 sons of Lamaria Prime painted the crystalline spires in brilliant colors that Solara couldn't see, while the energy patterns that only she could sense danced in complex harmonies that regular eyes would miss. But together, sharing their different ways of experiencing reality, they could appreciate the full spectrum of existence. "Yes," she answered, her crystal form resonating with joy. 1,000 times yes. The news of their engagement sparked another wave of excitement and debate among both species. But this time, it was met with more understanding than resistance. They had shown that love, like science, could transcend biological differences and cultural boundaries. Years later, the Helios Research Center would become famous not just for its technological breakthroughs, but for the story of its founders, a blind alien scientist and a human researcher who proved that sometimes the greatest discoveries come from seeing the world through another's perception. Their legacy lived on in the generations of humans and Lamarians who learned to share their different ways of experiencing reality, creating a richer understanding of the universe they all called home. And in the end, that was the greatest breakthrough of all, the recognition that in a vast and varied universe, love and understanding could flourish in the most unexpected ways. As the 3 sons set on another day on Lamaria Prime, Solara and Nathan stood together in their garden, their different perceptions united through technology and love, proving that sometimes the most beautiful light comes not from what we can see, but from what we can understand in each other's hearts.